Hey everyone, welcome to Unbreakable with Jess Marie. Hey Brandon.
Hey, good evening, peace and blessings. This is Speaker Brandon Gillespie live here with Miss Jess Marie. Appreciate the invite.
Indeed. So Brandon and I currently are serving together. He does a lot of serving in Humble ISD. I have been serving with him for the past 2 years now at Humble High School. So Brandon, tell us a little bit about what you do with Humble High School, or actually with HISD. Was it HISD?
Yes.
Humble ISD.
HISD, UMBISD. Currently, me and my comrade, we have a foundation. Fathers for the Youth of Tomorrow is the name of the foundation. We also spearhead the Watchdog programs in the elementary school that we're at here at ISD. But we're mainly the guides and the go-to guys for the entire district when it comes to reestablishing dad organizations within the district, as well as on the elementary, middle school, and even the high school levels at this time.
Okay, so when I first met you, Brandon, it definitely wasn't in a school setting. I met
Yeah.
you at what Loud Fest was that summer 2022 ish,
Yeah, I believe that was the fall. I believe,
fall 2022.
yeah, definitely.
Okay. So at that time, I was working in radio, and you were
hmm
doing what at that time?
At that time, I was back into the entertainment scene, far as managing and hosting brunches. You know what I'm saying? Hosting R&B brunches to be exact.
Okay, so at this moment, you're no longer doing that.
I'm no longer hosting, on the R&B tip, the brunches and everything. I still go out and eat brunch, you know. Thank you very much. But far as, the whole hosting thing and being in the mix like that, nah, put that to the side, but I'm still open and willing to help manage those, who need guidance in the right direction, that come with the right mindset. Let me say
Okay, so
that.
recently I've seen that you've been doing a lot of speaking, and not just speaking,
Mhm.
but you are doing more biblically speaking. So your walk in that direction, has that made any, or has that had an impression or part of the reason why you changed or stopped doing R&B brunches, hosting R&B brunches?
Well, let me give you the short version. You know what I'm saying? I actually have always had those particular skills and skill sets to far as the entertainment and in the music scene, stuff like that, just coming from a background of engineering, rapping. Um, when I first came to Houston, you know what I'm saying, back in 98, 99, from Chicago. So that's how I started in the scene of Houston. But the evolution of what that was, because I was always still doing outreaches and participating in juvenile center programs and different things throughout Houston, especially downtown on San Jacinto with my other comrades from the Gridiron Gang. Also, what birthed out of that came the prison youth ministry. And throughout those years, I was heavy in ministry, focused on ministry. I actually left the music alone. I want to say like 2015, around that time. Well, yeah, 2010, 2015, because I got married, I believe, in 2009. So I was definitely deep in ministry. And I was actually ordained as a pastor back then. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people know that. A lot of people still address me as, Pastor Gillespie, Pastor Brandon, or Reverend. I have, depending on who you talk to, or depending on who I'm around, you know what I'm saying? But ministry has always been in me. I've always been involved with like political avenues as well. So that whole evolution, made its way into ministry. And where you met me is when I tiptoed back into the entertainment scene. Not as much, but a little bit. I want to say I'm moving kind of fast, but I want to say to keep my sanity, and it was therapeutic because I was going through a divorce, you know what I'm saying? So I needed to be creative. I needed to um get moving. Because to be real with you, just having ministry at the time just wasn't gonna do it, just to be honest. I mean, even the individuals who were in the church fully didn't know how to respond, didn't know how to come up with the words to say, couldn't basically help me with Bible as I helped many with Bible. You know what I'm saying? Because when you look for that help from those you've been in ministry with for years and years, and when a situation like that happens to you in real life, you'll actually see who's really standing on Bible and who's actually willing to get down with you and help lift you up. But only individuals I really had was slim to few when it came to the church. Um, but a lot of my comrades, who were still in the mainstream, was there for me and helped me navigate through those turbulent times.
Got you. So, question, this is something that I kind of battle with, should I say.
Hmm.
During the time that I met you, I was in radio, and my walk right now consists of solely serving or
Hmm.
doing God's work. So if God doesn't get the glory in whatever I'm doing, I'm no longer doing it. So part of that for me was radio. I walked out of radio because I no longer listen to secular music. I no longer am
Right.
promoting the things that is promoted in there. And I'm not saying that maybe one day R&B won't hit like it did before or
Yeah.
something, but I just feel like when you're really going deep and intentional with the Lord, you can't do what everybody else is doing. There's a
True.
time of isolation. There's a time that you have to come out from what everybody else is doing and really just press in. So for
Hmm.
you, I hear you saying during your divorce, you got around people that supported you. And for me, that was the same when I went through my divorce.
Hmm.
But you have some foundation in ministry, you have some foundation in serving in that capacity.
Right.
Would you consider that from the outside looking in or from looking back? Would you consider that a little bit like backsliding for you, or
I I
was
would
it just a
I definitely would call it a little bit of electric slide. I would call it a little bit of an electric slide because I didn't fully get caught up in the sauce to where I was like, I'm done completely with ministry and God and everything else. No, because it was God Himself with His Spirit and His truth and His Word that was able to keep me and keep my mind. Because like I tell
okay?
people when they ask me, well, how you doing? I say, well, I'm not on the news and I haven't put nobody on the news. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing mighty fine, right? So with that, going and tapping back into the you can just say mainstream entertainment side of things, it was more, well, not everybody can do it. Let me just say that. But for me, it was more of a creative tip. Because I didn't even mention, I also, during that little time period, I produced probably like 2 or 3 comedy shows at Ebony, where you had met me as well. Successful comedy shows with my comrades, Black Smooth the Barber, and many others. But that was, again, for me, not for everybody else, for me to keep me creative, to keep me moving, to keep my mind off of the negative, to keep my mind from being on the news or putting somebody on the news. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
We all have our different types of therapy. Some people literally have to go to therapy and have to get somebody to talk to them so they can talk back. For me, my therapy was to be creative, was to get back to something I know I'm good at. I know I ain't finna just go out there and lose it, lose my mind. So I'm gonna be creative with the comedy shows and the managing and the hosting and this and that. But like I said, with the hosting thing, I knew if I would have stayed in that arena, I definitely would have got too deep into it. So I had to leave that alone. But when it comes to producing like comedy shows and stuff, I may still do that on the side as well.
Okay. Well, that's honest. If I kept on down that path,
I know
I'm
I'm
not
gonna get
sure.
caught up in the sauce. Not a lot of
Okay,
people get caught up in the sauce and they just leave Jesus alone completely. They just mad at him all day the rest of their life. But no, that wasn't gonna be me.
gotcha. And I think like we joke a little bit about the discussion or the topic of divorce, but that is a major thing because like I was telling the last young lady, I said, what a lot of times what we don't realize is that, and I know you know, but the enemy attacks marriages harder than individuals because
Hmm.
that's where some real fruit can be produced for the Lord. However, not all
Right,
marriages are producing stuff, you know what I mean, the way that it should.
right.
We're tolerating people, or we've chosen the wrong spouse, and now we get the fruit of that and all the whatever comes with that. So I'm
Well,
not saying that's the case with you, but
I mean, to be honest, a lot of us were unlearned in the beginning when we decided to get married or choosing a spouse or believing we should get married. A lot of us, when I mean by unlearned, we didn't have the parents or the individuals in place to teach us what that truly means or to nurture us in the way of the word, how it's supposed to be done. When you go out and look for and seek a wife, the woman is already in wife standards. You know what I'm saying? She's already been molded. Her mindset is of a virtuous woman. Her heart is already with God. So she knows that in the beginning and the end of the day, there's God, man, then woman. She understands the order of things when it comes to his word. You know what I'm saying? And with man, being nurtured and girded with the word of God in the right way from those who will teach it to you. But if you were absent from that and didn't have that, you're gonna have, fly by night marriages just built on emotions and sexual immorality. You know what I'm saying? And God, for me, He gave me the playbook, even before I got too deep in my marriage. He told me how everything's gonna play out. For me, myself, I'm trying to pray it to be different, but he showed me the heart of a thing. He let me know, well, this is going to happen down the line because the individual's heart is still here. Even though they acting and doing this and that, their heart is still here. But I'm believing in the praying that it be different. And God is saying, no, it ain't finna be different. It's still gonna be as it is, because again, only the Spirit of the Lord knows the heart of the thing, as the Word teaches us. But me, for a lot of us, we overlook that because we want to see the greatness in that individual. We want to see that individual who we believe them to be. But if that individual in their heart isn't, anchored in God, they will never become who they're meant to be in God unless they, release and be fully anchored in Him.
I can agree with what you're saying there. Can Do you think, or can you say that we have to take some type of accountability with choosing the spouses that we choose, knowing that that spouse is not submitted or to the Lord the way that we are, should I say?
Right.
We have to take some accountability for that.
Yeah, we got to take full accountability because God definitely shows us. If we have a little relationship with God, He's going to show us exactly what's to come and what's going on in the now time. But again, humans being humans, we looking at the surface of a person, how they look, how they may be treating us at the time, how nice they may be. But again, that's why you have the story of the wheat and the tare. They grow, they look the same, but again, God said, let them sprout up. Once they get to that full age of tenure, you'll see exactly who they are in character. And once you realize the true character of a person, what's truly in their heart, you'll know that they never served God to begin with. They always been children of the devil, for lack of a better word.
Dang, that the children of the devil.
For lack of better words. That's what God called them when he talked to them
Yeah,
Pharisees. He
hey,
said,
hey, I feel you. I'm not debating. I'm just, my
we got
thing.
to keep
Okay,
it
so
straightforward. Go ahead.
yeah, so now even with going through that situation, of course, we all heal the way that we heal. Like you said, we all cope the way that we cope. Are you
Mhm.
to the point now where the Lord has healed you, where you know that the Lord still has a wife for you eventually, right?
He said, right. Well, what I know now, I know not to lead with the eye and lead with flesh, of course. So time is definitely being taken to every extent when it comes to whoever I may meet, whoever I'm currently engaging with right now. Time is a thing that I'm definitely utilizing to build and to see how the true character of a person sustains either in self or in God. And we can't really just be in a rush for things, but I'm definitely open. I've been consistently open because where my heart is still built in the foundation of marriage and that sustainability of that foundation. But you know, I'm not gonna say I've given up on the whole ideal of it because it is written, man shall not be alone. Well, shouldn't be alone. You know what I'm saying? But you know, we'll
Yeah.
see as time tells.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Had a few conversations about this, and one of the young men I talked to, when he was saying that he knew that he wants to be married, but at that moment he wasn't seeking a wife when he found his wife. And I told him, I said, it's the desires that we have, regardless, they come from the Lord when it comes to that, because it's there's only a small amount of people that were called to be alone and solely for the Lord. So if you have any type of desire, physical desire to be with the opposite sex, that desire comes from the Lord. And he said, you might as well go ahead and get married because all of what you're doing on your own, that's
Mm,
not guaranteed to be fruitful, first of all. So I can
that's
say
right.
that it's good to hear that. I'm glad to know that you're not just jumping on the next pretty thing that comes. And I see
Mm.
that you're focused, doing a lot of serving and stuff like that. So what does that look like for you now? Are you doing a lot more serving, a lot more ministry? What are you doing at this moment?
Like I said, ministry is being done through the school district because that's a part of ministry as well. Any individual that you may meet, talking about myself as well, that doesn't have a problem and is willing to sacrifice time, not just to volunteer, but to help mentor other children, other youth, rather than their very own, is I believe, a true-hearted individual that's grounded in God, you know, because they're showing and they're bearing good fruit. I just tell people, look at the history of my character. I never put out anything that seemed to be just for self. It's always been for the betterment of my household as well as my community. Because when I look at the youth, especially of today and of tomorrow, I see myself as that youth. I see myself as that child that didn't consistently have the father figure growing up from elementary all the way almost through high school as well. My grandmother had to introduce me to mentors, had to call university from U of H to TSU when we moved here to Houston and get them to send people to the house to talk to me to make sure I didn't veer off to the left. So that always stuck with me because again, when I see different youth, I see myself in them, whether there be a situation where they're in going through strenuous times where they can't afford certain things or not not able to experience certain things or certain educational systems to help better their mindset. So with the work we're doing here in Umbel, it gives me the resources as well as the open doors that's accessible to bring a lot of those youth to and through at the same time.
So being raised in a single parent household and getting or having mentors at a young age, would you would say somewhat set the foundation for you desiring to do the same, like that being impactful on your life?
I would say raised in a single grandmother household.
Got you. Same
You
here.
you know
I
what I'm
feel you.
saying? I still commend my mother and my dad for growing and maturing and finding their mindset. Even though some of it may have been found later in life, you know what I'm saying? But were still able to find themselves instead of expiring from this life without truly finding themselves. But definitely, I thank God consistently for my grandmother who sacrificed the time and was able to teach me about Jesus and teach me the word and plant those seeds of outreach and helping others in me, and that's why we're here today.
So, with your both of your parents, your biological parents, still alive, right?
Just my mother. My dad passed a couple of years back. Couple of years
Okay,
back.
got you.
Uh-huh.
So, even though you weren't raised by either, was it growing up? Was it hard to respect them, or did you easily respect even not being raised by them? I'm asking this because I mentioned before, like I wasn't raised by either of mine
Right.
either, and initially I kind of was like hard with them both, should I say,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like a wall. And as I began to even just seek the Lord more intentionally, like it was just impressed upon me to honor them
Right.
by like honoring the Lord by honoring them, regardless if they raised me or not.
Uh-huh.
And I had a really hard time with that with my mom. One because she was an alcoholic, but that type of thing is something that the Lord like really had to change in my heart for her. So were you that way with your parents, or did you always just still kind of just giving them that respect?
No, I mean, most definitely. I mean, there was a long period of time where I called my mom her first and last name
Oh wow.
when
Okay.
addressing her. You know what I'm saying? Because it was more of a sister and brother type of thing. You know, my mom had me when she was probably like, I think 15, 16, if I can remember, maybe
Okay.
17, somewhere around there. So going through those experiences, yeah, the heart, we all human. So the heart was hardened in that area for a while. And like I said, calling her by her first and last name and addressing my grandmother as mom, you know what I'm saying, for
Gotcha.
many years. You know what I'm saying? But as I grew more and more in the word and that that hardened heart started to to get broken, it's a little bit easier for me now to say my mom when I'm talking to other people, you know what I'm saying, and especially or if I'm addressing her, it may not be so much. I can still say to this day I may not be as much affectionate, but I am affectionate because at first, growing up, wasn't really that much affectionate. So the little hugs and different things I do give is a jump, if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? But it even with that took time. And with my dad, I just thank God, I had the opportunity to baptize him when he came from Chicago to visit to Houston a couple of years or many years back before he passed. So not having that real dad and son relationship that really wasn't there, but it was more of a, always a check in. And even though sometimes you call, be asking for money type stuff, you know what I'm saying? And for those that, had parents that in that life, whether it be drugs or alcohol, you know what I mean when you had that particular parent that always just be calling to see if you got some change. You know what I'm saying? You'll ignore the call or you won't even bother checking in on them. So, but for again, that took time to build up that resistance to still just answer the call and just to hear the other person's voice. But coming from those two particular lifestyles and just seeing how their lives were and where they went Again, I just thank God that I didn't go that route, whether it was gang banging or was it, having 6 to 7 baby mamas or selling drugs or, because I definitely was a candidate for those particular lifestyle
Mm.
because that was in the cards. That was with society. If society wrote the book, society would have said, well, yeah, they kids or they were born from the crack, this and that, and they dad always in and out of penitentiary, gang banging, shooting, robbing, whatever they was doing. Mom, this and that. So if you put the math together, it- that's probably majority of what you're gonna get. But to this day, to God be all the glory that none of us had to go down those paths or experience those penitentiary chances or time. If I tell anybody that, my uncles and mom and dad have done more time for enough of us, so I don't need to give no more time to the system because they did all the time for everybody.
Wow. So I have a question. Do you think that for a boy, I ask this to men and I get a different answer. Do you think that your lack of, I know that we have the grandmother there, but the lack
Uh-huh.
of having a mother or your biological mother present as a mother, do you
Mhm.
think that affected how you, in essence, chose the women in your life, or maybe wife, or
I would say yes, but mainly on the grounds like what I stated a while ago, just not having that real instructional teaching on marriage and the preparedness. Because I feel that if you prepare a child, just like I said, if you train a child in the way they should go, they won't depart. If I was actually trained to know how to look for a wife, then I would look for the wife characteristic. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't just look for what I like to see or what I'm like to hearing. You know what I'm saying? I would look for, okay, the word said the wife should be built of these particular characteristic traits. And same thing for the woman. The word says the man should be built of these characteristic traits. So if I'm not finding these characteristic traits in you, then I'm gonna keep moving on, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't have that, just like many of us didn't have that. But, like the word said, you perish for lack of knowledge, but you want to make sure once you get the knowledge, you utilize it. Okay, now that you have it, utilize it so you do not perish, for your lack.
the reason I posed that question is because, like, I wasn't raised with my mom, wasn't raised with my dad, but there was a point in time where my mom did come back, and my brother chose to go with her, but I didn't. I stayed with my grandmother because it wasn't the best situation to be in. Because even when I temporarily went, there was a stepdad situation that was just like, yeah, that's not a definitely not a dad I want to be raised by. So I
Right.
had the ability to stay with my grandmother. Now my brother on the other side, on the other hand, kind of wasn't accepted in any household. So he went as a boy. They had the opportunity to go follow his mom. So when that situation became physical between my mom and stepdad, or there was any type of anything going on, my brother, even as a young boy, stayed around to try to, be there for my mom, save my mom type thing. And I
Yeah.
seen that carry over to him being an adult. And
Right.
ultimately, the women that he was being with were women that he somewhat had to save. And in some capacity, in one way or another, and it landed him in prison. So
Mm,
he's doing 25 years in jail behind a situation, behind a woman that he should have let go of, but
right.
because he was trying to be the father that he never had and trying to save this woman because she was that's a whole long story. But I'm saying that to say,
Yeah.
reflective, looking back when I'm talking to him before he wasn't walking with the Lord, knew nothing about the Lord, really felt like he was done wrong by the Lord, should we say, because
Mhm.
you kind of toss in the wind. Nobody really accepts you. Nobody really takes care of you, for lack of better words. You're just here.
Right.
And now, like I said, having an opportunity to be with your mom, because as a son and with boys, I know my boys want to be with me. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and at least I give them healthy love and a healthy environment. But him desiring that, even with however that looked, and then
Right.
that correlating and going over to him being grown and the women that he was bringing around, it's like, where did you find this woman? Where, where did you get her? And then just hearing storyline, not necessarily exactly like my mother, but there was some characteristics that were the same. So as I'm healing and understanding, like, why did you pick the men you're picking? My question was to my brother, like, do you feel like you picked this specific woman because you didn't have your mom
Mm.
showing you the best? And so then we want women or men that don't treat us the best because that's just kind of what we're used to. Like, it's like a toxic cycle. You know what I mean? So anyway,
Yeah.
that's just something that I always try to get an understanding. Like, looking back, do you feel like maybe the woman that you chose had characteristics like a mother that you wanted? You know what I'm saying? Like, was she
Nah,
nurturing? Was she?
nah. It ain't got nothing to do with no nurturing or something that you was missing from your previous mom. Cause we as human beings, we create, like you said, these toxic domino effects that go on and go on from one generation to another generation until we stand on Bible and we utilize the Bible as it need to be used. Just like today, if if I'm not gonna train my son in the way that I know to train him according to the Bible, then he'll, yeah, definitely fall in that category. But I have to train him because I know the knowledge as far as the truth in the word. I know what it says, so I have to apply it. Now, it will be his choice to apply it to his everyday life when he come of age in those particular times of need. Um, but I would have done my part. See, we didn't have a lot of people, whether it was dad, mom, or whomever, to do that part, to train us. If we had that training, a lot of us wouldn't be here talking to each other today. We'll be living our married lives, doing what we're doing in marriage or whatever, but it didn't play out that way. We just didn't have the proper training. And that's why we have in our society and the societies before us, that's why we have all these mixed breed of marriages, mixed breed of second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth marriages, where, yeah, it seemed cool, but it never was supposed to be that way. It never was designed to be that way. If we really break it down, it never was designed to be that way because at the end of the day, the Bible doesn't speak about a stepmama. The Bible doesn't speak about a stepdaddy. Like I tell people, I said, if you find yourself in that situation, just know that the child needs to know their biological dad or mother. If the biological mother and dad is open to build and they in a right godly mind, you know what I'm saying? Right godly mind, not earthly mind, but right godly mind. Because growing up believing that a stepdad or stepmother is who they are, they can play that role. There's nothing wrong with playing that role, but you still have to have the heart to let them know that I'm more of a guide, a mentor to you. But you still should honor your biological mom and dad. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, and that just teaches them that you you don't grow up with a hardened heart because you'll keep them in a hardened heart stage if you don't teach them that way. Because they'll always have some type of resistance for that individual. But again, now if that individual ain't in their right godly mind, that's not their fault. You know what I'm saying? That's on the parents' fault. because each individual parent has to take the responsibility and understand though, okay, I know I messed up. I know I wasn't with you for this particular cause in the right way, but at least give me a chance and time to build this relationship with my son or daughter. And if they come like that, then we can actually have something beneficial.
I can definitely respect that stance for sure. The situation after my ex-husband, I wouldn't say that he didn't allow it, but it was kind of like, and it was never said, but with
Hmm.
the dad not being his best, it was like kind of like what do they need him for if he's gonna be this way or that way? And my thing is this: no one replaces the mother, no one replaces the father ever. So even
Right,
if that person is not up to par where they should be, everybody, you know what I'm saying, needs that grace for sure, unless they just crazy.
right,
And then we're
right,
talking about something totally different. So I can definitely respect that stance. I believe I never see myself as being someone's stepmother because I never wanted to raise my children outside of the home they were produced in. All three of my children have the same father, and I was married to their father. So that's
right.
is not great of a marriage as that was. That's what was the desire at least until they were grown enough to go on about their business. But
Hmm.
hey, it is what it is. But going forward, if that is God's will for me to connect with someone else before my 13-year-old is grown, that is definitely, I think, a great stance for sure. And
Right, right.
going back to what you said right before that, when you said the foundation, like having, I think that's why I have so much grace for my mom and my dad because, of course, they had their own life too. My mother was very young as well. She was like 16. Then she had my
Hmm.
brother right after. Like we're literally 11 months apart. Even though he's premature, we're still the same age for like a month.
Right,
So her being very young, two small children, and at the time she had us, then my father went to prison for life. So it was like I raised these two children by myself. I'm still a child myself. But
right, right,
my
right.
problem was that you gave us to my grandmother not to go better yourself or to go finish school or to get a job or to do that. You went to go live your life. That was always my issue with that whole situation. But again, of course, the Lord allowed me to forgive and move past that. But what you said about foundation, I think that's why at this point I'm so grateful that the Lord has like definitely pulled me in a
Hmm.
lot because even though the foundation was set with both of my oldest, I've planted the seed. I've taken them to church. We've Bible studied. We've done all these things. So whatever decisions you decide to make at this point are really literally on you because you've been given a foundation. So my
Right.
13-year-old, I'm a little bit more intentional with him, a lot more. Like in Proverbs, we need to know what the virtuous woman is. We need to know what this other woman is. I need
Hmm.
this presented to you. I need you to read about Samson. I need you to understand these things so that way when these women are presented to you, you're at least aware. So if you still decide to go do whatever you want to do with these women, you're aware. You no longer can say like we're saying we didn't know. No one gave us that. No one taught us that. We had to learn it
Right.
on our own. So I think that's definitely important for sure. So
Definitely, definitely.
even through all of that, you were raised by your grandmother, came to Houston, you had your mentors. At what point would you say that the desire to even like get into the word or seek the Lord, like what point in your life was that? Was it like, can you recall something that did something happen, or was there just a transition for you that you began to seek the Lord besides what your grandmother was teaching you?
I would say while I was going through college, I was going through a real heavy study stage when it came to studying the Bible. God was just opening me up to all types of revelation within His Word and was in strict study mode. I mean, I still study to this day, but I was really heavy in studying and opening up the mysteries of the Word of those 66 books that you see and now the additional books, but that's a different story. But definitely heavy in study at that time. And when my grandmother passed, that's when, and this was like in '09, that's when I really allow the switch to turn on because I didn't have any more room to, I want to say to play. I wasn't really just playing. I still had responsibilities to take care of those responsibilities. But during her passing, we actually was always promoting or doing something. Had a small club deal out there in Katy, in old Katy back in the day, where me and my high school comrades were putting together. And it was just one of those nights that we was putting that together, and that was the same one of the nights that my grandmother passed. So I looked at that as, me out doing the foolery and not really being aware of what's really going on around me. So that's when I really let all that go at that particular time, you know what I'm saying? And really got on the bandwagon to really focus and really build that true relationship with Jesus. Because I had a relationship with him. Because like I said, I was doing some heavy studying back in college. But when that situation happened, like I said, light cut on, and I really decided to really build that relationship with him, which got me into the mindset and the mode that I'm in now, still to this day, which is a discerning mode, which is a no ifs, ands, or buts. If it ain't got Jesus in it, you know what I'm saying? And always allowing him to guide in all situations, whether they be small or great. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah. I was just talking one day and I said when I was studying the tabernacle is where this really hit me when it was explained that the spirit of the Lord was in a tabernacle and so when they were
Hmm.
carrying it, and it was just like revelation for me that when they were carrying it, where was it? It was in the front, right? As they
Hmm.
were traveling, it was always in the front. And that was like it's a resemblance that the spirit of the Lord goes before us.
Right.
And I recognize that in many times in my life, I maybe pray about it and maybe have been impatient with waiting on an answer or direction or feeling like I don't know which way to go. So I make a decision on the best way I think, and then that would not necessarily be so.
Hmm.
And sometimes I didn't pray at all. Sometimes I was just like, I'll make this is a decision I'm making. But in those times, it made me realize, like, looking back, many times we make decisions and then we ask God to come in after the fact and clean it up. Like,
Right.
help me
Right.
with this thing after I made the decision.
Hmm.
And like for me, the Lord has given me many revelations to say, like people say, oh yeah, he's a loving God and he's a this and he's that, which he is, but he's also a God that doesn't play. Like just like a parent. They love you, but we still got, you know what I'm saying? We still have to respect them. There's some accountability. They're not just letting everything slide. And we
Hmm.
are to be chastened. Like it's actually for our good, but we don't see it as that discipline. We don't want that. So looking back, I realized that many times I made decisions that could have been prevented or things that maybe the Lord never even intended me to experience, but simply because I decided these things or I went before the Lord and didn't let the Lord go before me. So now it's like my constant prayer that Lord go before me, like even in this day, go before me in this day. Like, you know what I mean? I thank you
Hmm.
for this day, but also to go before me. Where do I serve today? Like those type of things. So just being very intentional in the walk, like you said, knowing God for sure, knowing Jesus for sure, but being more aware that maybe these things could have been prevented had I really spent more time with the Lord before. Like you saying, your grandmother passed away, and that just made you go deeper into the Word. Some people
Right.
they would retreat and say,
Yeah.
"Oh man, my whole life is gone now because this is the person she's not only my grandmother, she's the person that raised me, so I see her as my mother. My grandmother died in '09 as well. She died
Hmm.
in February of '09. I
Yeah.
graduated college. I was the first person in my family to graduate. I graduated college in May of that year and I got married in May of that year. So it was a very hard year for me because she raised me and she didn't get to see me graduate.
Right, right.
And that weighed heavy on me because I was just like, wow, I worked so hard to get right here. And it just was a reminder that life is so delicate, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we really don't, like, now I just really see it like we have time, but we really don't have a lot of time to waste. So when I was in marriage, I didn't really seek the Lord then because it was like I felt like just so many, what do you call it, excuses.
Right.
I got too many things to do. I'm all over the place. I'm working, I'm taking care of small children, I'm going to
Mm,
school, got a husband, all these things. And now I realize, like, in my life right now, before I do anything, I have to spend my time with the Lord because it makes everything else so much easier. As much as on my plate right now, spending that time with the Lord one on one, building the relationship, asking the Lord to close the door, open the door, and being okay where He slams the door in my face, and being
mm,
okay where He opens the door, like being okay with no matter what the outcome is, actually being at peace with it. This life now is so much better, and I'm like, why was I not getting this before? Why did I not?
right.
Because it was many times that I felt like the Lord was calling on me or pulling me in or trying to, and I
Mm,
wouldn't. And maybe because of what I was seeing, the fruit of what I was seeing was just like I didn't want to, or whatever the case, whatever it was I was battling with. But I can definitely say the last year and a half of my life has been really mind blown and changed. Like,
okay.
I don't even make the money I was making then because of all the things that I was doing before. But
Right,
being
right.
where I am right now with the Lord, like, life is so much better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, once you understand that, just the peace of mind and the stability in him is worth more than any amount of gold or treasure that the earth can offer you. Because once people really understand the Bible, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So everything belongs to him anyway. You know what I'm saying? Everything belongs to him anyway. And as a son or a daughter of his, we walk in that authority. We walk in that authority because a lot of people still don't realize to this day that God created good and evil. And when you really understand that he created good and evil, then nothing on this planet should be able to move you, whether in heaven or in earth, except the Holy Ghost. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't move you because if something evil or disturbing comes, then you know that, okay, this is set before me so I can go through it, not stay in it, but move through it. Because God wants me to go through it. And He's obviously sharpening me and building me up for a bigger and heavier task to come. Because if I can't get through this, how can I represent him in these end times, in these times we're living in right now? How can I truly represent him if I can't handle the meaningless situations, whether it be with family, friends, spouses? Just like you said, a lot of people would have lost their mind and dropped everything with losing their grandmother or losing a spouse or a marriage, you know what I'm saying? And ending up on the news, or putting somebody on the news. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of people that crashed out. And I remind folks of this. I said, you just can't overlook people's emotions and what they may be feeling because any and everybody can crash out at any moment in time. So you have to have Jesus to keep you in a sound mindset and to keep your heart in a good place. Because as he move his hand, you gonna be Looney Tune up and down the freeway, tripping out. You know what I'm saying? So we got to thank God for keeping us in perfect peace and strengthening us in our weaknesses. But yeah, but truly understanding that He created all things, He's the Father of all spirits, not just good spirits, clean spirits. He's the Father of unclean spirits too. So everything that occurs has to go through Him. He has to permit it before we even are tried or bothered by it. But again, he equipped us with every tool in the box. which is his word, you know what I'm saying? To handle these situations. So that's why that studying comes into play, because when you study to make thyself approved, not saying, you shouldn't be guided or um what's the word, encouraged or mentored by a pastor,
Right,
preacher,
that's
or
right.
minister, is good. But it comes a time where you have to study to make thyself approved. Do you know that word for yourself? Are you able to utilize this word in action when these situations come about, when somebody's cussing you out in your face, when they're threatening you, when you are put in a position of loss and hurt? Do you understand that when you lose somebody, when somebody transitions from this life, that yes, they're not dead. They're either being transitioned into a new body that God has prepared for them, or they're gonna be eternity in hell. There's only two options. But it comes from the relationship that those individuals have with God. So like you just said, we gotta utilize the time that we have, because um life is precious. It's like the word says, nothing but a vapor. And within a blink of an eye, it can be gone. So we want to make sure we are staying consistently grounded and anchored in Him and doing the works of an evangelist, like the word says. That way, when He shows up, we not getting caught up in ourselves or getting caught up what we want to do. We want to get caught up serving and for the kingdom of God. And that's the best place to be when that time does come.
For sure. I definitely can say for that, like at the end of the day, life, what they say, life is life, and life is going to life. Things are going to happen.
Right.
And without the Lord, like you lose your mind. And
Oh yeah.
now, and I know that even during those seasons that I wasn't walking as closely with the Lord as I am now, I
Hmm.
know that it was only him that kept me in those seasons. But now it's just like even more evident. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, even during the divorce, like we were both actually seeking the Lord the most at that time. We just weren't seeking Him together. He was
Uh-huh.
doing His thing and I was doing my thing, but we both were seeking the Lord. And it was only by the grace of God that we walked through that gracefully, even though we weren't getting along during that time. But
Uh-huh.
that'll tear somebody up. There's people that still to this day are like, I divorced 10 years ago and I'm never getting remarried. Like just bitterness on their heart and all these things. And it's just like, I don't know, like
Say never.
I'm at peace with everything, even with how it played out after the fact, you
Yeah.
moving on, remarrying, like all that stuff. Like literally at peace with the entire thing, even with the situation after that didn't work out. I'm at peace with everything. It's just like to the point to where understanding that we idolize marriage, we idolize our husband, our wives, we idolize our children. And
Hmm.
like there's people that literally say, I'll die for my kids or I'll die for my husband or wife, but it's just like
Oh, I ain't got none of these suckers.
but we don't
Kids and
understand the
all, I ain't
severity
got
of
for
that.
none.
Like you really idolizing people to
Mm-mm.
an extreme that we shouldn't. You know what I
That's
mean? And I heard somebody say you'll die for him, but will you live for him? And that's a difference. Like meaning, will you change your life, the way that you live in life, the things you're doing wrong? You'll die for them. You're gonna say the most extreme thing, but will you live for them? Will you do the things to set
yeah.
examples for them, to lead them in the right direction? So anyway, once I understood like the idolizing and how that really, because my ex-husband used to say that all the time, you put these kids before me, and that I didn't quite understand. And now I understand what he meant. But that wasn't the case. I just didn't have a mother. So I'm trying to be the best mother that I can be.
Right,
But
right.
I do understand it
I
though.
mean,
But I'm saying that to say,
he may not cut you off, but he did make a valid point there, because
no, he did. He definitely made a valid
God,
point. Like I
man, then woman.
absolutely, absolutely. Like that's why I said anytime I speak about that situation, I'm never just pointing fingers that way. I can definitely say he was absolutely right in certain aspects because when
Right.
I had my baby, I was just like, that was the first time ever that I was actually able to take off of work after having a child,
Yeah.
meaning the full 6 weeks. So I didn't get that with the first two. So to be able to have that, but I also understand where there was lack between him and I. You know what I mean? So those are things that just like I said, revelation that you get after the fact. But
Right, right.
even even idolizing all those things, when I just start submitting everything to God, even when I'm having trouble with my kids, I'm like, Lord, these are your kids. They were your kids before they were mine, and yeah, I don't think that it's time for them to meet you. So I mean, I need you to step in and do your thing. So, but anyway, it's been a great
I
conversation for sure,
appreciate
Brandon.
it. I appreciate it.
Is there anything I would say that you can leave with someone that maybe is going through a hard time and at this moment maybe on the fence about really seeking a relationship with the Lord, not really religion as far as going and joining a certain organization or anything like that, but really on the fence about seeking the Lord for themselves in relationship? What advice maybe would you give that person?
My advice I would give any and everybody right now who's seeking God or who, like you say, on the fence with building a relationship with Him, or just have a nasty look at it because of what they've seen from other people. Step into it, you know, without even considering none of that, and reach out to me, reach out to just individuals who understand that building that one-on-one relationship with Jesus is the primary reason. It don't matter who else is doing it, who not doing it, how they doing it. You just do it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, no one can get through this life without him, period. No one can get through this life without him. No matter how good it may look or seem, it's all imagery. It's all imagery and smoke and mirrors. But behind the scenes, folks are really going through it. They're really dealing with mental illness. They're dealing with depression. They're dealing with anxiety. They're dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff that will get them locked in the closet. You know what I'm saying? But to keep you out of the closet, you know what I'm saying, and to keep you in your right mind and in a right moral state of mind, because the world is losing morals and anything respective about self or God every day. So to keep you morally sound, definitely build that relationship with Jesus yourself. Study to make yourself approved. The Bible says, save yourself. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, save yourself. Save yourself. If your kids don't make it, if mama don't make it, if daddy don't make it, if brother, sister don't make it, you make sure you save yourself. You ain't being stingy. You ain't being selfish. You just have done your part when you try to share this word. But you got to make sure at the end of the day that you save yourself. Leave you with that.
All right, Brandon. Well, I appreciate you coming on with me today. Guys, you have been tuned into Unbreakable with Just Marie. And today we have Brandon on the line. I will link all of Brandon's social media pages. If you want to drop that real quick, you can drop it as well.
Mm. Yeah, you can reach out to me or follow me on Speaker Brandon Gillespie. That's Speaker Brandon Gillespie, BrandonGillespie. You can also find me on Twitter by that following as well as Instagram and Facebook.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until the next episode, you guys be blessed.